Hi, how are you good people? How are you my super singles? This is Annie, your big mama. Today, we want to look at infidelity. Infidelity, unfaithfulness, adultery, being untrustworthy in a relationship or in a marriage. We want to look at this and how it gets to break marriages and relationships. Karibu. Well, we know that this is a very sensitive topic. We know that it is very dicey. Reasons being, there are those people who belong to a certain culture where polygamy is allowed. Polygamy is the thumb rule. No man gets to just marry one wife and they get to settle with that. There are some religions that actually encourage this, that you get to marry up to 4 wives. But there are those others that do not get to entertain that. Like, one man can only marry 1 wife. End of story. Some cultures encourage this while others are a bit, silent about it. But in our African setting, I want to talk about us Africans. In our African setting, we know that a man, right from time immemorial, a man would marry as many wives as his wealth could allow. So they could have 2, 3, up to 10, or even more. We have others like the famous Akuku Danger, who had about 75 wives. But coming to look at it, is this something that everyone gets to accept, irrespective of the culture, the religion, the practices, the expectations, and all those other factors that may come to play? Sometimes when someone is in a marriage and they get to notice or realize that their husband or their spouse is going out there and getting to engage with other women, they get to feel disappointed, they get to feel used, neglected, and wronged, so to speak. So what happens in such a situation when this is not made official, when this is not discussed, at the table? A member or a wife or the woman in that particular relationship will start feeling like they are not really working together with the husband, or they are not pulling in the same direction. So this woman will want to, look at ways and means in which they can want to handle their situation. Some will even choose to go back to their parents' homes. Some will choose to pick a fight. Some will choose to even get to physically fight whoever the other woman is. But all these do happen, and for various reasons, we know that. But for those ones who do not accept, or their religions or their cultures do not get to shout about this thing, or even an individual's preferences, because there are those religious practices, there are those cultural practices, but then there are those principles by an individual, like, hey, I do not want to engage in a polygamous kind of a setting. I do not want to be a first wife or a second wife or any other number of wives. I want myself and my husband, end of story. So when some of these things happen, you realize that members get to develop some sort of a rift where they disagree on matters. But that can be different when it is a religious practice or a cultural practice which is acceptable by both husband and wife. And even with that, there are those procedures, there are those channels that must be followed. But how about when it is just for the sake of, just going out there and having other women and engaging even with them emotionally, and even sexually. Sometimes other people call that immorality, sexual immorality. When such a thing happens and someone is not very pleased with that, they tend to feel like the partner or the spouse is not faithful, the partner cannot be trusted, their partner is not keeping to their word, like when they were wedding, whatever the vows they gave or they promised each other. When such a thing does not happen and someone does not get to keep their end of the bargain, the other one feels duped and wronged. And when they feel wronged, this becomes a perfect recipe for a fight, for disaster, for separation, and even for divorce. So what do we need to do? We first of all must get to understand where we're coming from. If you're in a religion that allows for this, get to speak, discuss it with your spouse. Like, hey, yes, you're my wife, but I will need 3 more. You're my wife, I will need 2 more. Right from the onset. Let them get to know that these are your intentions. Let them come on board. Let them get into this marriage knowing that, yes, I am your wife, but you're going to get 2 or 3 others other than myself. So they are aware and they have this, cognitively at the back of their minds. So it does not shake them when they later on came to realize that you have a relationship or an affair or you're engaged to someone else for marriage. When it is the cultural practices and it is permissible, then get to discuss this. Let someone get to know, like, this is what to expect even maybe 10 or 15 years to come. This is what is going to happen. So they come on board knowing what exactly it is they're getting themselves into. But you get into a marriage or you start living together as husband and wife, and before they know it, you're already dating someone else, you're already engaging in some other extramarital affairs out there. Somebody gets to feel betrayed. Somebody gets to feel hurt, and this is not a very good thing, because infidelity and extramarital affairs, unfaithfulness is perhaps number 1 reason relationships or marriages get to break, because someone feels they got cheated or they got duped. Someone feels betrayed and they just want out. So these are some of the reasons that people get to fight or disagree in a marriage, but it is something that can be looked at, from a very sober perspective, where people get to sit down and discuss whatever their issues are. We cannot say it must be 1 man, 1 woman, because there are those ones that do not get to practice it that way. So we've also seen instances where we have a woman marrying 2 husbands. Polyandry. Yes, we've seen it. Even here in Kenya, we have seen it. Not once, not twice. We have seen people doing that. But each and every couple, as unique as it is, must then have their own unique way of going about their own issues. They've got to have their own special way of tackling their own issues just as they come, because we cannot say it's a blanket kind of a thing. You realize that there are even certain nations that allow and say, even constitutionally, that it is okay for a man to marry 2 wives, or it is okay for a man to marry more than 1 wife. It is okay. But is it okay for you as an individual? Is it okay for me as an individual? Is it something acceptable by me? Is it something that I can live with? Once all these things get to be discussed at the table, people get to agree on their way forward. And their way forward must not be the neighbor's way forward or a relative's way forward. This is unique to this particular couple. This must be unique to this particular marriage, because different people will have different practices, different beliefs, different principles, different values, different perceptions to life, and all this will vary. So for this particular couple, where we have a man and his wife, or a wife and her husband. This is the smallest unit where they can get to discuss all these things. So if it is something that has to be done officially and it is acceptable, so be it. Let it go and let it happen that way. But out of this mischief where you're in a marriage, yes, you're one man, one woman, or a woman and her husband, but then from time to time there's one, going out there to engage elsewhere. Maybe it's the husband or the wife getting to, make those trips with the flings and those affairs. This gets to feel like a betrayal. This is something that can be worked on by, of course, people sitting down and discussing whatever their issues are, and in accordance to their own relationship or their own marriage, they can be agreed upon. But for those ones that are not agreeable, is there a way that they can also be sorted out? They can be resolved. People can get to agree. There's nothing really difficult under the sun, because all these will require people sitting down and discussing whatever their issues are. But we know that out of mischief, where someone just, fancies doing this kind of thing, and in the long run getting to hurt the other, this gets to break a partner's heart. It gets to make them feel betrayed, and in some instances they will even want out. We've seen situations, and not once, not twice, not even 100 times. We have seen, even in this country alone, people getting to even maim others, people getting to kill others, people getting to divorce others, people getting to do all manner of things. Why? Because someone went out of their marriage, because someone went out of their relationship, because someone did not keep their word to remaining faithful, because someone went out there and engaged elsewhere with someone else other than their spouse. So all these things get to happen, and we see quite a lot of it, and it is not something that any society should be proud of, because when a life is lost in a love triangle, for instance, a lot of things come to play. There are people who will be left behind suffering. There are children involved. There are parents involved. There is a job involved. There is a future involved. All these things. So members, let's look at that and see to it that we are able to, get to live amicably, try to be faithful. If you cannot keep to your own wife or your own husband, have a discussion, hold a discussion. There's nothing difficult in that. Hold a discussion. Let him say whatever it is that is bothering him, or whatever it is that makes him want to go out there and get himself another woman, or another wife, or another husband, for that matter. Let people be open, discuss whatever their issues are, and get to find an amicable way. Let people live happily. Let people enjoy their marriages. Marriages are sweet. Right from the Garden of Eden, that is what God intended for marriages to be. So whenever there are issues or wrangles or fights or even killings, that is not what God loves. God loves peace and harmony. God loves it when people live together and happily. So, ladies and gentlemen, up until the next video, let's brace ourselves for the next one. Please don't forget to share, to like, to subscribe, and let's meet at the comment section. Let us get to hear your thoughts. Let us get to hear what your experiences are. Please share with us. This is Annie, your big mama. Bye.